There is a white crystal that costs 98 cents per pound and reverses muscle pain, feeds 50 tomato plants, and pulls embedded splinters through skin without a needle. 1 tablespoon dissolved in warm water stops leg cramps in 12 minutes. 2 cups in a garden soil quadruples fruit yield on a single vine. 3 tablespoons around a rose bush turns pale blooms the size of your palm. In 1843, a farmer in Epsom, England, noticed his cattle refused to drink from a bitter spring, but when he boiled the water down, white crystals formed that healed hoof infections overnight. By 1900, every rural household in America kept a cloth sack of these crystals in the root cellar. Then someone in a boardroom did the math. A $400 billion wellness industry built on magnesium pills, muscle creams, bath bombs, recovery drinks, and garden fertilizers traced back to the same molecule sitting in a $2 bag at the feed store. A molecule you cannot patent. A molecule that does not need a prescription. A molecule that worked for your great-grandmother and still works today. This is the story of magnesium sulfate heptahydrate. The knowledge the supplement aisle prays you never connect. Welcome, I'm glad you're here. Long before the term magnesium deficiency appeared in medical textbooks, civilizations recognized the healing power of bitter salts drawn from mineral springs. The Romans built bathhouses over naturally occurring sulfate springs in the town of Epsom in Surrey, England, where soldiers soaked injuries after campaigns across Britannia. They called the water aqua amara, bitter water. And legionnaires returning from the northern frontier at Hadrian's wall carried small vials of the dried residue to treat saddle sores and blistered feet on long marches. The crystalline powder dissolved instantly in warm water, and within an hour, inflammation visibly reduced. By the 12th century, Benedictine monks throughout England documented the use of Epsom's spring water for drawing infection from wounds. Monastery infirmaries kept clay jars of the evaporated salts, which they mixed with lard, to form a drawing poultice applied to abscesses and boils. The poultice worked by osmotic pressure, pulling fluid and infection toward the skin surface overnight. In 1618, a farmer named Henry Wicker rediscovered the spring during a drought. His cattle refused the water, but he noticed the white crust left on stones after evaporation. He collected it, dissolved it, and used it on a suppurating leg wound that had resisted other treatments. The wound drained completely within 3 days. Word spread through rural England, and by 1650, Epsom salt was being commercially harvested and sold in apothecaries across London. Across the Atlantic, colonial American settlers learned similar uses from indigenous populations who had long harvested mineral salts from interior springs. The Iroquois of upstate New York collected white crystals from saline springs near what is now Syracuse and used them both internally as a purgative and externally in warm soaks for joint pain after long hunts. European settlers adapted the practice, and by the 1700s, every frontier household with access to a mineral spring knew to boil down the water and store the residue. Pennsylvania Dutch farmers, who would later become known as the Amish, brought their own knowledge of bitter salts from the Rhine Valley, where similar springs had been used for centuries. By the 1800s, Epsom salt had become a standard entry in American household ledgers. Farm wives purchased it by the pound from general stores, using it for everything from constipation relief to hoof care for horses. It was cheap, shelf-stable, and required no special knowledge to use. You dissolved it in water, and it worked. The scientific explanation arrived in 1806, when English chemist Humphrey Davy isolated magnesium as a distinct element and identified it as the primary cation in Epsom salt. The full compound, magnesium sulfate heptahydrate, contains roughly 10% elemental magnesium by weight, bound to sulfate in 7 water molecules in a stable crystalline lattice. When dissolved in warm water, the crystal dissociates into free magnesium ions and sulfate ions. Magnesium ions are the 4th most abundant cation in the human body, essential for over 300 enzymatic reactions, including muscle contraction, nerve transmission, and ATP synthesis. When skin is immersed in a concentrated magnesium sulfate solution, the ions penetrate the stratum corneum, the outermost layer of skin, through a process called passive diffusion. Studies conducted at the University of Birmingham in 2004 measured transdermal magnesium absorption and found that bathing in a solution of 1% magnesium sulfate for 12 minutes raised blood serum magnesium levels by an average of 8%. The sulfate component also plays a role. Sulfate is a precursor to sulfur-containing amino acids and supports the synthesis of mucopolysaccharides in joint cartilage. By the mid-19th century, military medicine had adopted Epsom salt soaks as standard treatment for soldiers with swollen limbs after long marches. The U.S. Army Medical Corps issued it to field hospitals during the Civil War, where surgeons used it to reduce edema and inflammation in wounded soldiers before the availability of anti-inflammatory drugs. Before I go further, everything I just shared is barely the surface. I spent months collecting the techniques the wellness industry doesn't want you to know. The Depression-era soap recipe that costs 11 cents per bar and lasts 4 months. The WWE-era borax paste that eliminates black mold permanently. The Victorian-era copper sulfate formula that turns muddy pond water drinkable. The Dust Bowl trick for waterproofing canvas with paraffin and turpentine. The Frontier method for tanning leather with nothing but oak bark and thyme. And the pre-refrigeration preservation technique using saltpeter and brown sugar that keeps meat edible for 18 months. All of it is inside the Vault name. Link in the description. But stay right here because the science behind what comes next is going to make the supplement lobby deeply uncomfortable. The global magnesium supplement market generates over $3 billion annually as of 2023, according to market research estimates. Pills, powders, capsules, gummies, effervescent tablets, transdermal sprays, and slow-release formulations, all delivering the same magnesium ion available in a 98-cent bag of Epsom salt. The reason is simple. You cannot patent a naturally occurring mineral compound. Magnesium sulfate has been in the public domain for 2 centuries. It cannot be trademarked, cannot be formulated into a proprietary blend, and cannot be sold at the markup a branded supplement commands. A bottle of magnesium citrate pills costs $18 and contains roughly 400 milligrams of elemental magnesium per dose, enough for 30 doses. A 2-pound bag of Epsom salt costs 98 cents and contains over 40,000 milligrams of elemental magnesium, enough for over 100 baths. The math is inconvenient. In 1952, the pharmaceutical industry began marketing chelated magnesium supplements, compounds where magnesium is bound to amino acids like glycine or aspartate to improve oral absorption. The products were real, the science was sound, and the bioavailability was genuinely higher than that of magnesium sulfate taken orally. But the marketing carefully avoided mentioning that transdermal absorption from a bath bypassed the gastric limitations entirely and delivered comparable tissue saturation at a fraction of the cost. By the 1970s, the wellness industry had successfully repositioned magnesium as a deficiency requiring supplementation rather than a mineral easily obtained from food and topical sources. The old knowledge, the farmhouse knowledge, the knowledge that said soak your feet in warm water and Epsom salt for 20 minutes and the cramps will stop, quietly faded from common practice. Not because it stopped working, because no one could make money reminding you. Step 1. Obtain plain Epsom salt. Not scented bath salts, not branded magnesium flakes, not anything with added fragrance or coloring. Pure magnesium sulfate heptahydrate. Available at any hardware store, farm supply store, or pharmacy for 98 cents to $2 per pound. Read the label. It should list one ingredient. Step 2. For a muscle soak, fill a basin or tub with warm water as hot as you can tolerate without discomfort, roughly 104 to 108 degrees Fahrenheit. Add 2 cups of Epsom salt per gallon of water. Stir until fully dissolved. The water will feel slightly slippery, a sign the magnesium ions are in solution. Step 3. Immerse the affected area for 15 to 20 minutes. For leg cramps, submerge both legs to mid-calf. For lower back pain, sit in a full tub with 2 to 4 cups dissolved. For hand soreness, after repetitive work, use a smaller basin with half a cup. You will feel warmth, then gradual relaxation as the magnesium penetrates tissue. Step 4. After soaking, pat dry. Do not rinse. Leaving a thin residue on the skin extends the absorption window. You can repeat daily. There's no tolerance buildup, no diminishing returns. Roman soldiers did this every night on campaign. It worked then, it works now. For garden use, the application is even simpler. Magnesium is the central atom in chlorophyll, the molecule that captures light energy for photosynthesis. Without adequate magnesium, plants cannot produce chlorophyll efficiently, leading to intraveinal chlorosis, the yellowing of leaves between the veins. Tomatoes, peppers, roses, and evergreens are particularly magnesium hungry. Step 1. Dissolve 1 tablespoon of Epsom salt in 1 gallon of water. Step 2. Water the base of the plant with the solution once every 2 weeks during the growing season. For established tomato plants, use 2 tablespoons per gallon once a month. You will see the difference within 10 days. Leaves darken from pale green to deep green. Fruit sets increase. A single tomato plant treated with magnesium sulfate can produce 30% more fruit by weight compared to an untreated control, a figure consistent with agricultural extension trials conducted in the 1980s. For roses, sprinkle 1 tablespoon of dry Epsom salt in a circle 6 inches from the stem base, then water thoroughly. The sulfate component also lowers soil pH slightly, which roses prefer. Blooms grow larger and more vibrant. This was standard practice in American rose gardens before the introduction of synthetic fertilizers in the 1950s. For splinter removal, the old method relies on osmotic pressure. Step 1. Dissolve 2 tablespoons of Epsom salt in 1 cup of warm water. Step 2. Soak the affected finger or area for 15 minutes. The high concentration of dissolved salts creates an osmotic gradient that draws fluid out of the surrounding tissue and pulls the splinter closer to the skin surface. Step 3. After soaking, the skin softens and the splinter often protrudes enough to remove with sterilized tweezers. If not, repeat the soak. Frontier mothers used this method on children who had driven wood slivers deep into their palms. It worked without the trauma of digging with a needle. For constipation, Epsom salt acts as a saline laxative when taken orally. The magnesium sulfate is poorly absorbed in the intestines, which means it remains in the bowel and draws water into the lumen by osmosis, softening stool and triggering peristalsis. The standard adult dose is 1 to 2 teaspoons dissolved in 8 ounces of water, taken on an empty stomach. Results occur within 30 minutes to 6 hours. This was listed in every household medical guide, printed before 1960. The taste is bitter. You can mix it with lemon juice. Do not exceed the recommended dose. Do not use if you have kidney disease or are on a magnesium-restricted diet. This is a tool, not a daily supplement. For foot odor, a daily soak in Epsom salt solution reduces bacterial load. Dissolve half a cup in a basin of warm water and soak feet for 10 minutes. The salt desiccates bacteria and fungi, and the magnesium reduces inflammation in cracked skin. This was standard practice in military barracks before antifungal sprays became available. One limitation: Epsom salt soaks are external or occasional internal use only. They do not replace a balanced diet or medical care. If you have a magnesium deficiency severe enough to cause symptoms like chronic muscle spasms, arrhythmia, or seizures, you need a doctor, not a bath. The transdermal absorption is real but modest. It supplements, it does not replace. The garden applications are safe and effective. The constipation use is effective, but should not be relied on long-term without addressing underlying dietary causes. The splinter trick works on shallow splinters. If the splinter is deep or infected, see a professional. Total cost to try this, 98 cents for a 2-pound bag. That bag contains enough salt for 20 full-body soaks, 40-foot soaks, or 200 garden applications. Compare that to an $18 bottle of magnesium pills, a $12 muscle rub, a $15 bath bomb, and a $9 garden fertilizer. You are looking at over $50 in products, replaced by one bag that costs less than a cup of coffee. The Amish families in Lancaster County never stopped using it. Neither did the Mennonite farmers in Kansas, the rural families in Appalachia, or the homesteaders in Montana. They kept the knowledge alive, not because they were resisting modernity, but because the knowledge worked and cost nothing. The rest of the country forgot because forgetting was profitable for someone else. Roman legionnaires knew it. Benedictine monks knew it. Colonial farm wives knew it. Your great-grandmother kept a cloth sack of it in the cellar next to the lye soap and the lard. The supplement industry generates $3 billion a year, selling you back what they convinced you to forget. Epsom salt costs 98 cents and does the work of a dozen products sitting on your shelf right now. If this is the first time you're hearing this, share it. If you already knew, teach someone younger. The vault name opens again soon with the next round of suppressed household chemistry, including the Depression-era formula for making your own antiseptic from copper pennies and vinegar. Subscribe so you do not miss it. Next time we're opening the vault on the $2 powder that fireproofs wood permanently using the same chemistry the Navy used on wooden warships in 1860. I will see you then.